The day I signed the divorce papers, Chang'an had its heaviest snowfall in 3 years. My husband, no, now he should be called Jiyu Yanqing, heir to the Marquis Jing'an, stood under the corridor, his blue brocade robe making him seem even more cold and jade-like. He looked at me with not a trace of reluctant sorrow that comes from a breaking marriage, only the chilling relief of someone unburdened. Shen Weilan, we were never walking the same path. You are the daughter of merchants, all stained with the stink of money. I am from a gentry family of rank and honor. These 3 years have been the limit. Beside him was his frail, talented cousin, Liu Ruyue. She was wearing the white fox cloak I had sewn for my mother-in-law with my own hands, and gently coaxed, "Cousin, don't say that about sister. Sister is just, simply not skilled in poetry, not versed in refined tastes." My mother-in-law, the lady of the Jing'an Marquis, didn't even bother to glance at me. She waved her hand impatiently, as if shooing away a fly. "The papers are signed, so be gone quickly. The gates of our mansion are not meant for someone of your station, and don't forget to take your tacky dowry with you, lest it sully the purity of our household." I lowered my head and looked at the separation deed on the ground, the ink still wet, and the thin silver note he had just flung down. 100 taels. Consider it a reward for my 3 years of running the household, serving my in-laws, and even using my generous dowry to cover the Marquis's residence's deficit. I laughed until tears nearly came. They think that once I leave the Jing'an Marquis's residence, I, Shen Weilan, won't be able to survive. They think my greatest leverage is the hollow title of Marchioness Consort of Jing'an's heir apparent. They don't know the family they despise and scorn as a merchant clan is the greatest bank under heaven. Huitong Tianxia, and I, Shen Weilan, am its sole heir. Miss, are you really leaving? Just like that, not even checking the dowry list. That's a full 128 palanquins. What if they embezzled? Back in the Shen family's carriage, my personal maid Bao Xia cried until her eyes were bloodshot, more heartbroken than I, the real owner of the sorrow. I lifted the carriage curtain and took one last look at the Jing'an Marquisate with its vermilion gates and high walls in the falling snow. It stood like a silent beast, devouring the 3 years of my youth. No need. I lowered the carriage curtain, my voice calm and even. Consider those things the price I pay to buy out 3 years of grievances. From now on, I, Shen Weilan, and the Jing'an Marquis household are settled. Payment made. No further ties. Bao Xia froze, murmuring, "But, many of those are mementos the madam left for you." I closed my eyes. My mother's gentle smiling face flashed briefly through my mind. Yes, those precious jewels, antiques, and paintings were all the memories my mother left me. But over the past 3 years, I pawned them off one by one. The money I got turned into the splendid official robes on Jiyu Yanqing, into the exotic delicacies at the Marquis household's banquets, into the glittering jewels on my mother-in-law's head. Now, I don't want them anymore. Those things tainted by their hypocrisy, contempt, and scheming feel filthy to me. The carriage rolled onto Zhuqiu Avenue, and the prosperity of Chang'an City washed over me on both sides of the street. Row upon row of shops all hung the same gilded signboard, Huitong Tianxia. This is my Shen family's enterprise. Seeing them, the turbid air that had been suppressed in my chest for 3 years finally began to exhale slowly. Yes, I once thought that marrying Jiyu Yanqing would be the best ending of my life. He was the third-ranked scholar, the most famous talent in the capital, the dream of countless noble daughters. The first time I saw him was at the Lantern Festival. He wore white like snow, stood at the end of the bridge, and the poem he casually recited drew cheers from the whole city. Back then I thought, if I could marry this man, I would have no regrets in this life. For this, I went against my father's objections. Father said the Jiyu family is a clan of pure, upright scholars, and they look down on us merchants the most. They seek to marry you only because they covet the Shen family's wealth, wanting you to fill that long empty hole in their household. I didn't believe it. I thought that if I were good enough, obedient enough, I could win his true heart. So I curtailed the shrewdness I had absorbed since childhood in the money house, hid the knack for calculating figures faster than flipping through a book, and learned to be a gentle, virtuous matron of a respectable family. I cooked for him and washed his hands, managed the inner household, reported to my mother-in-law at dawn and dusk, and handled the various poetry gatherings and tea parties for my young sister-in-law. I have been using my dowry, carefully maintaining the outward splendor of the Marquis of Jing'an's household. And what did I get in return? In return, He and Liu you spend the night in the study discussing poetry and painting, while I can only quietly bring a bowl of hot tea to the door in return. My mother-in-law points at my nose and scolds me. You reek of money, even the children you bear will be tainted with vulgarity. What I got in return was my sister-in-law Jiu Linger openly mocking me in front of everyone. My sister-in-law can't even read a single big character, but she can rattle off abacus beads louder than anyone. What broke my heart the most was last month at my father's birthday banquet. I begged Jiu Yanqing to accompany me back. He frowned, his face full of disdain. What do I look like attending a merchant's feast? It's nothing but a crude display of wealth. If my colleagues find out, won't they laugh that I'm keeping company with merchants? That day, he didn't go to the Shen family. Instead, he accompanied Liu Riyue to Cold Mountain Temple outside the city to admire the plum blossoms. In that moment, I fully woke up. 3 years of warming a stone, by now it should be warm. But Jiu Yanqing's heart is ice. Since that's the case, why force it? Miss, we've arrived. Bao Xia's voice pulled me back from my memories. The carriage came to a steady stop. I looked up and saw the two bold, powerful characters Shen residence. This is where my true home is too. The news of me being sent home on leave was like a stone tossed into a calm lake, stirring up a huge uproar in the Shen household. Father, Shen Wansan, the man who controls the economic lifeline of the great Zhou dynasty, showed rare fury on his usually composed face when he saw me standing before him, looking so desolate. He slapped the zittonwood table beside him with one palm and shouted angrily, "That ungrateful lot of the Jiu family, they've gone too far." The teacup on the table jumped from the shock. The scalding tea splashed onto his hand, but he seemed completely unaware. Lana, tell your father the truth. Did they wrong you? I'll take people to the Marquis residence right now and break that Jiu brat's legs. My daughter Shen Wansan's is not someone they can bully at will. Seeing my father's fury mixed with sorrow, I held back the tears all the way until they finally burst out. I threw myself into his arms and cried out loud like a child. The grievances, restraint, and unwillingness of the past 3 years all exploded at this moment. My father said nothing. With those hands that had turned countless golden and silver abacuses yet remained warm and solid, he gently patted my back after a long while. I stopped crying, lifted my swollen, reddened eyes, looked at him, and said word by word, "Father, your daughter has been unfilial. I did not listen to you before, and now I have brought this fate upon myself. But my daughter has made up her mind." I took a deep breath, my gaze growing resolutely firm. From today on, there is no longer Lady Shen Weilan, wife of the heir of Marquis Jing'an. There is only Shen Weilan, the young master of Huatong Tianxia Bank. Father was stunned. He looked at me as if seeing his daughter for the first time. "You want to take over the family business?" "Yes," I nodded. "Please, father, hand over Huatong Tianxia to me." Huatong Tianxia Bank's operations span the 13 provinces of the Great Zhou. Famed as wherever there is well water, there is Huatong. It wasn't merely a place to deposit money and offer loans. It was a vast financial empire controlling numerous industries: grain transport, silk, tea, salt and iron, and more. It's no exaggeration to say that when someone in the Shen family sneezes, the entire economy of Great Zhou trembles 3 times. And precisely because of this, father has always been cautious. He fears that as a woman, I won't be able to steer this great ship, and he fears I'll be dragged into the treacherous undercurrents behind it. But now, seeing the fire ignite in my eyes, he fell silent. After a long moment, he sighed, "Lana, do you know this business is 100 times more dangerous than the back quarters of the Marquisate? Are you really sure?" "I'm sure." I did not hesitate. In the Marquisate, I was a soft pear everyone could squeeze. But here, I am Shen Weilan, the mistress of money. Father, your daughter doesn't want to rely on anyone anymore. I want to stand on my own, higher than everyone else. My voice was not loud, but it landed like a hammer. My father stared at me for a long time, then finally nodded slowly. "All right." He unfastened a piece of jet black token from his waist, engraved with the character, and handed it to me. "This is Huitong Tianxia's highest token. To see this token is to see me in person. From today on, you are the new shopkeeper of Huitong Tianxia. However, father has one condition." His expression grew serious. "Your father can hand the bank over to you, but you must prove to all the shareholders and the managers that you have the ability. 3 months. I give you 3 months. After 3 months, If you cannot win them over completely, you will have to return the token. I clenched the cold token tightly. It felt as if it weighed 1,000 pounds. I knew this was my father's test, and his way of protecting me. I nodded firmly. Father, rest assured, in 3 months, I won't just win them over, I will make the name Huitong Tianxia ring louder than ever before. 3 On the second day, I appeared in the council hall of the Huitong Tianxia main branch as the newly appointed chief shopkeeper. In the council hall sat a dozen shareholders and veteran shopkeepers of the money house. They were all founding elders who had followed my father in building the enterprise, each one a seasoned old hand. When I walked in, everyone's gazes fell on me in unison: surprise, scrutiny, suspicion, and more. Master Dong, what do you mean? The young lady has only just returned from the Marquis residence, how can she shoulder such an important responsibility? An elderly shop manager with white hair, Manager Wang, spoke first. He is the bank's second-in-command and commands great prestige. Exactly, the bank's business isn't something for womenfolk to meddle in. If anything goes wrong, who will take responsibility for this vast family enterprise? Murmurs rose all around, full of distrust toward me. I didn't rush to defend myself, I simply walked quietly to the main seat and sat down. Then I placed the black token on the table with a sharp snap. The council chamber fell silent in an instant, everyone's eyes fixed on the token, their expressions different. I looked around slowly and began. Uncles, I know what you're worried about. I, Shen Weilan, am just a woman, newly divorced. In your eyes I may not even be able to manage my own life, let alone run this vast bank. My voice was clear and calm, each word pronounced distinctly into everyone's ears. But, I shifted tone, my gaze sharpening. My surname is Shen. The blood of the Shen family runs in me. I learned to read at 3, to calculate at 5, and by 7 I could understand ledgers, every single transaction in this bank, every line of business. I am more familiar with than any of you here. I've been married into the Hu household for 3 years. It may look like I went to be the mistress, but in truth I went to personally experience what it means to live off past wealth and to be gold on the outside, rotten within. The most important thing I learned in those 3 years was how to make money produce more money. Those words left the managers present exchanging glances. Manager Wang frowned and said, Young mistress, you speak lightly. The reason Huitong Tianxia has reached its current state is steady, methodical work and reputation above all. The household scheming you learned at the Hu Manor, if applied to business, will likely cause trouble. Uncle Wang is right. Credibility is fundamental. I smiled slightly. Not angry, so I'm not here today to overthrow anything, but to inject new life into the bank. I have 3 new ideas I'd like to ask you uncles to consider. As I spoke, I had Baoxia distribute the proposal I had written overnight. First, a tiered savings system. Our current savings service pays a fixed interest rate regardless of the amount deposited. This doesn't help attract large deposits. I propose dividing depositors into 4 tiers: regular, silver, gold, and diamond. The more you deposit, the higher your tier and the higher the interest, and you would also enjoy additional services offered by our bank, such as priority loans and investment consulting. Second, 1,000-mile transfer. Nowadays withdrawing money across provinces is cumbersome and time-consuming. I will establish a nationwide internal settlement system, using passwords and seals as credentials, so that as long as it is one of our Huitong Tianxia branches, deposits and withdrawals can be made instantly, without worries across locations. Third, and most importantly, credit loans. Existing loan services all require sufficient collateral. This deters many smart, project-driven young merchants who lack capital. I will set up a dedicated assessment department to comprehensively evaluate borrowers' character, ability, and project prospects, and build a credit system. Those with good credit can obtain our small loans without collateral. When my words fell, the whole council chamber was silent. All the shopkeepers lowered their heads to the proposals in their hands, faces showing undisguised astonishment. These ideas, they had never heard of them before, yet they seemed full of promise. After a long while, Manager Wang finally looked up, his gaze complicated as he looked at me. Young mistress, these ideas are truly too shocking and unconventional. I smiled. If they're not shocking and unconventional, how else can we unify the world and take it to a higher level? Uncle Wang, uncles all, I do not intend to be autocratic. For these 3 months, Please watch how I turn these ideas into reality one by one. If after 3 months they fail, I, Shen Weilan, will gladly return the token and never again concern myself with the money house affairs. I rose and bowed deeply to everyone. Please, I'm counting on you. Seeing those faces shift from doubt to contemplation, I knew my first step had already succeeded, for I launched my reforms with decisive speed and force. The tiered savings system was the first to be implemented. I personally designed depositor cards of different ranks, crafted from fine Nanmu wood and decorated with gilt, making them especially prestigious. At the same time, I purchased an elegant garden beside the main office and converted it into the Huitong Elegant Court, reserved for the rest and business talks of gold and diamond level depositors. Once the news broke, the wealthy merchants and powerful elites throughout Chang'an were in an uproar. Saving money not only earns interest, it also signifies status and helps build connections. Who wouldn't want such benefits? In just 10 days, Huitong Tianxia's new deposits exceeded the total amount from the entire previous year. Even the nobles who normally looked down on others sent their stewards to apply for gold cards and diamond cards. Watching the deposit slips arrive daily like falling snow, the old shopkeepers who had previously doubted me completely shut their mouths. The way they looked at me shifted from scrutiny to admiration. Next, I set about establishing the Qianli Universal Exchange System. This was a massive project that required standardizing the ledger formats of all branches, training over 100 accountants, and designing a secure, confidential encryption system. I shut myself in the study for 3 days and nights, drew detailed flowcharts, and compiled a thick operations manual. Then I summoned all the shopkeepers from the district to the capital and personally trained them. These old hands who had scraped and clawed their way through half their lives in the marketplace at first thought I was all talk, but when I presented them with a complete sandbox simulation, modeling various possible emergencies and response plans, they were completely won over by my thoroughness and foresight. Shopkeeper Wang stroked his beard, full of emotion. Young miss, your mind is truly better than all of us old folks put together. The house has a successor. What a blessing for everyone. The reforms were in full swing. I was so busy I barely touched the ground, almost on the verge of forgetting Jiyu Yanqing. Yet, as it happened, someone didn't want me to forget that day. I was entertaining several diamond-level VIP clients at Huitong Yayuan, among them the 7th prince of the current court, Xiao Che. This 7th prince was young but extremely shrewd and one of the emperor's most favored sons. He was also the first royal family member to apply for a diamond card after my reforms, so he gave me tremendous support. We were just discussing the market for Jiangnan silk when the steward of Yayuan suddenly came in and reported with a strange look, "Chief Manager, Miss Ji of the Jing'an Marquis Manor, Ji Linger, is here to see you." The hand holding my teacup paused slightly. Ji Linger, what is she here for? Before I could speak, 7th Prince Xiao Che let out a light chuckle, a teasing note in his voice. "Oh, someone from the Jing'an Marquis's residence. I'm rather curious. What business does Miss Ji have with shopkeeper Shen?" I glanced at him. This prince is inscrutable, and I don't want him to laugh at my family. I set down my teacup and said to the steward, "Tell him I'm busy and won't see him." The steward bowed and was about to withdraw when a commotion came from outside. "Shen Weilan, come out here. I know you're in there." Ji Linger's piercing voice cut through the doors and windows, laced with arrogance and bullying. "You discarded merchant's daughter. What right do you have to block me from entering? Do you think I won't smash up your shabby garden?" The guests in Elegant Garden all frowned, while a meaningful smile played at the corner of Xiao Che's lips as he leisurely watched me. My face darkened, and I stood up. Looks like some troubles can't be avoided. 5. I stepped out of the private room and came to the garden gate. Ji Linger had her hands on her hips, throwing a tantrum at the guards blocking her way. Behind her trailed a few close friends, gloating over the situation. Seeing me come out, she immediately acted as if she'd found her backbone, strutted forward, and glanced at me from the corner of her eye. "Shen Weilan, do you really think you're somebody, a discarded woman my brother cast off? And you dare to run such a large estate and even dare to block me at the gate?" She looked me up and down, her eyes full of disdain and jealousy. "Today I'm dressed in a neat, embroidered riding outfit for convenience at work. It's a far cry from the gentle, compliant attire I used to wear in the Marquis's residence. TSK, look at the way you're dressed, neither man nor woman. No wonder my brother doesn't like you. Our sister Ruyue is so much better." gentle, virtuous, well-educated. That's what my future sister-in-law should be like. The young ladies behind her echoed, exactly, Linger, why are you wasting words on a woman who reeks of money? I heard her family runs a money shop. Lending money, what's the difference between that and a pawn shop on the street? Brother Yanqing dismissing her was truly a wise move. Otherwise, for the heir of a respectable Marquis household to be associated with the Yu family, who are merchants, how disgraceful that would be if it got out. If these words had been spoken in the past, they would have cut me to the core, but now, I only found them laughable. I looked at Jiyu Linger and said coolly, Miss Jiyu, this is Huitong Elegant Garden, the place where I entertain honored guests. If you intend to make a scene, I'm afraid you've come to the wrong place. Distinguished guests, Jiyu Linger laughed exaggeratedly. What distinguished guests could you possibly have? Aren't they just a bunch of merchants as tasteless as you? Shen Weilan, I'm telling you, I came today to withdraw money. As she spoke, she pulled a silver note from her sleeve and waved it in front of me. This is the 500 taels my mother gave me, deposited at your shabby bank. I'm taking it out now, immediately, right away. I glanced at the silver note. It was an old-style bill issued by Huitong Tianxia. I sneered inwardly. The Marchioness of Jing'an actually sent her precious daughter to me to fetch money. I fear the old drunk's intention lies not in the wine. They calculated that I had just been discarded, that I harbored resentment and anger, and would surely lose my composure when provoked before others. They wanted to watch me make a fool of myself, to destroy the reputation I had painstakingly built. Unfortunately for them, they miscalculated. Not only was I not angry, I smiled faintly instead. Of course, connecting the world, credibility is key. Miss Jiyu, please come with me. I led her to the counter, personally took the silver note and handed it to the clerk. Pay Miss Jiyu 500 taels of silver. The clerk responded and went to fetch the money, but Jiyu Linger was relentless, deliberately raising her voice. Don't try to fool me with those small change pieces. I want government minted full 2-tael silver, and your pace is far too slow, delaying me from attending the poetry gathering. Can you be held accountable? She deliberately emphasized the words poetry gathering, her eyes challenging me as if to say, look, this is a world you'll never belong to. I couldn't be bothered with her and only told the shopkeeper, do as Miss Jiyu said, and hurry. Soon, 5 large ingots of gleaming official silver were neatly placed on the counter. Jiyu Linger looked at the pale, glinting silver, a trace of greed flashing in her eyes, but she still wouldn't let up verbally. Smart of you. She was about to have the maid put the silver away when I suddenly spoke up. Miss Jiyu, hold on. Jiyu Linger was taken aback. What trick are you trying to pull now? I picked up the abacus, my fingers flying so fast it made people's eyes spin. After a crackling series of sounds, I stopped. Miss Jiyu, this silver note of yours was deposited 3 months ago. According to our bank's old rule, if you withdraw before the deposit term of 3 months is up, a fee of 1 fen is deducted, 500 taels, 1 fen interest, which is 5 taels of silver. I smiled at her. So, you need to pay a handling fee of 5 taels of silver. Of course, you can also choose not to withdraw and wait until the 3 months are up, in which case we won't take a single cent. What? Jiyu Ling instinctively raised her voice. Taking my own money and still giving you money? This is robbery. Miss Jiyu, you're joking. My smile remained unchanged. This has been the rule at Huitong Tianxia since its founding 100 years ago, written in black and white on the back of the deposit slip. You must have seen it when you made the deposit. Jiyu Linger wouldn't have looked at that. She was instantly at a loss for words, her pretty face flushing bright red. Her close friends behind her also began whispering, and there was a hint of strangeness in their eyes as they looked at her. For 5 taels of silver, a dignified young lady of a marquis's household losing her composure like this in public is truly a bit unsightly. 6. Jiyu Linger was caught between a rock and a hard place, trembling all over with anger. Before she came, her mother and Liu Rua had suggested that she make a huge scene here to humiliate me. Ideally they wanted to force me into a rage so I would refuse to pay, then they could sue me in court, accusing Huitong Tianxia of cheating customers and embezzling depositors' funds. But no matter how they plotted, they never accounted for me refusing to follow their script. Not only did I not get angry, I greeted them with a smile and conducted business formally. Now she even brought out the bank's century-old rule to outmaneuver her. 5 taels of silver isn't much to a marquis's household. But being asked for it in front of so many people is truly a loss of face. You're deliberately making things hard for me. Jiyu Linga pointed at my nose, furious and flustered. Miss Jiyu, you can be careless with food, but you can't be careless with your words. The smile on my face faded, my expression chilling. The rules are what they are, applied equally to all depositors. We can't bend them just because you're the Marquis' daughter. Can we? If we did, what would become of Huatong Tianxia's reputation? Wouldn't we truly become, as you accuse, a street pawn shop easily manipulated at your whim? My words struck hard. Among the onlookers, many merchants nodded discreetly. In business, the most important things are trust and fairness. Jiyu Linga was left speechless by my blockade, both angry and flustered, on the verge of tears. At that moment, a clear, resonant voice came from behind me. Manager Shen speaks reasonably. Rules are rules, whether prince or commoner, everyone must abide by them equally. That is the way to maintain long-term business. Everyone turned toward the sound and saw 7th Prince Xiao Che, holding a folding fan, strolling out of the elegant garden. The moment he appeared, the surroundings instantly fell silent, and everyone bowed. Greetings, 7th Prince. Jiyu Linga was also startled, quickly curbing her arrogance and timidly making a bow. Your subject pays respects to the prince. Xiao Che didn't even glance at her. He walked straight to my side, his gaze falling on the 5 taels of silver, and smiled slightly. Today I also wish to deposit some money with shopkeeper Shen. I wonder, shopkeeper Shen, would you honor me by handling it personally? A thought stirred in my mind, and I immediately understood his meaning. He was standing up for me. I bowed slightly to him. Your Grace's favor is an honor for Wei Lan. Saying that, I turned to Jiyu Linga, my tone still polite but carrying an unmistakable cool distance. Miss Jiyu, look, His Grace is still waiting. This money of yours, will you take it or not? If not, please step aside so you don't delay our entertaining of an honored guest. At that, Jiyu Linga's face went completely the color of raw liver. She can't leave, nor can she stay. If she withdraws money, she'll have to take out 5 taels of silver in front of everyone. Humiliating if she doesn't, and slinks away like this. It's even more humiliating. Besides, 7th Prince is still here. What if I make him unhappy? She bit her teeth, shot me a vicious glare, and finally fished a piece of broken silver out of her sleeve. With a loud smack, she slapped it on the counter and practically roared, "Take it, this young lady isn't short on money." Then she ordered the maid to pick up those 495 taels of silver and fled in embarrassment without looking back. Watching her beat a hasty retreat, I felt not the slightest pleasure, only a chill spreading through my heart. I know, this is only the beginning. The Marquis of Jing'an's residence won't let this go so easily. 7. Jiyu Linga left in disgrace, covered in dust. While the atmosphere in the Hutro the World main office grew lively because of the 7th Prince's arrival, Xiao Che took out a banknote worth 100,000 taels from his bosom in front of everyone and handed it to me. Shopkeeper Shen, this prince would like to apply for the highest level, a diamond card at your bank. He deliberately emphasized the words diamond card, a playful smile on his face. 100,000 taels, gasps rippled through the crowd. This was no small sum. Even for the imperial family, it was a fortune. With this move, the 7th Prince was undoubtedly announcing to the entire world that he fully supported me and Hui Tong Tianxia. I took the silver note with both hands, solemnly completed the formalities for him, and personally presented that one-of-a-kind diamond card made of obsidian and gold flakes. Thank you for your trust, Prince. From now on, you are the most distinguished guest of Huatong Tianxia. With this card, you may enjoy the highest level of service at any of our bank's enterprises. Xiao Che accepted the card and lightly rubbed the delicate patterns on it with his fingertips, his deep gaze falling on my face. Manager Shen truly is the zhuge among women. Such a small card can leverage such immense wealth. This king is impressed. You flatter me, Your Highness, I said modestly. They're just small merchant tricks, not fit for refined circles. Oh, Xiao Che raised an eyebrow. To me, this isn't a small trick, it's an open scheme that turns stone into gold. Shopkeeper Shen, you're far more interesting than those so-called purists who only talk empty words and harm the country. His words had an implication. I felt a chill in my heart but pretended not to understand, lowering my eyes and saying, "The prince is joking." Xiao Che didn't say anything more, he only gave me a long, deep look. then left with his attendants after he left, the entire bank erupted. "My goodness, miss, you're amazing, even seventh prince has become our depositor. That's great, now who would dare cause trouble here again? It's all thanks to that grading system for the young ladies, that trick is truly brilliant." The old shopkeeper's looks toward me had shifted from admiration to worship. I struck while the iron was hot and immediately announced my second and third reform plans, the official launch of remote exchange and credit loans. With Prince Seven's endorsement and the prestige I had built up earlier, this time no one raised an objection. Everyone was raring to go, ready to make a big push. For the next 2 months, I practically lived at the money house. I led the team, working around the clock to refine the universal clearing system and build a credit assessment model. I took modern commercial banking risk control concepts and taught them to my subordinates, bit by bit, in a way people of this era could understand. For example, I would have them investigate the borrower's family, neighborhood relationships, and the reputations of past business partners. I call this a social background investigation. I would also require borrowers to provide a detailed business plan and assemble an expert team to evaluate it. I call this a project feasibility analysis. These actions, which seem commonplace in modern times, were groundbreaking innovations in that era. 2 months later, Huitong Tianxia's new business was fully launched. The convenience of the Qianli transfer had countless itinerant merchants applauding. They no longer had to carry heavy silver on the road. With just a small deposit slip, they could withdraw funds anywhere in the country at any time, safe and convenient, and the credit loans completely ignited an entrepreneurial fervor throughout the Great Zhou dynasty. Many talented, creative young people who lacked startup capital obtained their first loans through our credit evaluations. They opened new workshops, shops, and caravans, injecting unprecedented commercial vitality into this ancient empire. The prestige of uniting trade across the world reached its peak. The daily turnover has multiplied more than tenfold compared to before I took over. Even my father was so stunned after looking at the ledger I submitted that he couldn't speak for a long time. In the end, he just patted my shoulder and said good 3 times. I did it with my own abilities. I proved I'm not a dodder flower that can only cling to a man. My name, Shen Weilan, began to resound throughout Great Zhou, just like Huitong Tianxia. And just when my career was at its peak, trouble began at the Jing'an Marquis's residence. 8. The first sign that something had gone wrong at the Marquis of Jing'an's residence began with Jiyu Yanqing as the newly minted Tanhua. He ought to have had boundless prospects. Yet for some reason, he sat on the cold bench in the Hanlin Academy for 3 years, never receiving a promotion. At the time, when I was still his wife, I had hinted to him more than once that although the Hanlin Academy was prestigious and honorable, it was not a place to stay long. If one wanted to accomplish something in officialdom, one had to be posted elsewhere to gain experience and accumulate achievements. I even used the Shun family's connections to find out about several vacancies for county magistrates in the wealthy southern prefectures, subtly suggesting he could go and vie for them. But what did he say at the time? He said, "As scholars, we must regard learning as our foundation. To be posted away as an official, consort with clerks and petty officers, and be sullied by mundane affairs is not my wish. Shen Weilan, do not use your Philistine gaze to judge my ambitions." As it turned out, those contemporaries who had been inferior to him were posted away one by one, returned with real power in their hands, and rose several ranks. Only he remained in the Hanlin Academy, compiling books and editing history, pridefully considering himself above it all. Without the clandestine financial backing of the Shun family, the meager hereditary stipend of the Marquis of Jing'an's household could not possibly support the ostentation of their great and noble lineage. Soon, rumors began to spread among the townsfolk. They said the banquet at the Marquis of Jing'an's residence had increasingly meager dishes. They said the Marchioness had pawned several beloved pieces of jewelry. They said Miss Jiyu Linger, had new clothes made with fabric several grades inferior. These messages flowed continuously into my ears through Huitong Tianxia's sprawling intelligence network. I just listened, expressionless. I knew this was only the beginning. For a family that has lost its ability to regenerate and knows only how to consume, decline is the inevitable outcome. The last straw that broke them came out of the blue. The Yellow River burst its banks, and the people suffered calamity. The emperor was enraged and ordered a thorough investigation. In the end, it was found that the Vice Minister of Works responsible for repairing the embankments had embezzled more than 80% of the river repair funds, fobbing it off with shoddy, jerry-built work, and this Minister of Works happened to be a disciple of Lord Jingen. The two were very close friends. Enraged, the Emperor had the Minister of Works' household searched and him executed. Lord Jingen, accused of poor recommendation and lax supervision, was stripped of his title and had half his estates confiscated. Overnight, the once illustrious Jingen marquisate collapsed with a crash. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. The guests who once filled their halls dwindled until the place was deserted. When the wall falls, everyone pushes. Political enemies they had offended in the past piled on, submitting memorials to impeach them for all their past misdeeds. In just a month, the GU family fell from the clouds into the mud. Their fields and shops were seized one by one. More than half of the household servants were dismissed. Only an empty marquis's residence remained. No, it should now be called the GU residence, and the most devastating blow came from their creditors. To keep up appearances, the GU family has accumulated a lot of debt over the years. Now that they've fallen from power, their creditors have come knocking one after another to collect, blocking them in so they can't even leave the house. When Baoxia told me this, her tone was full of relish. "Miss, it's like heaven's justice. Look at how they treated you back then, now they're getting 100-fold payback." I, however, merely leafed through the account books calmly and asked lightly, "Have they repaid the money they owe Hui Tong Tianxia?" Baoxia was taken aback, shook his head and said, "Not yet, shopkeeper. Wang sent people to press them a few times, but they were driven off. I heard that Madame Gu even cursed, saying we were profiteering scoundrels taking advantage of their misfortune." I sneered, "Pass my words down." I put down my brush, a cold light flashing in my eyes. "Give the GU family 3 days. If they don't repay within 3 days, take the IOU and go to the Jingzhaoen's office in the capital to file a complaint. Being merciful to the enemy is being cruel to oneself." This truth was taught to me by Jiu Yanqing and the Marquis of Jingen's household over the course of 3 years. 9. The summons from the prefecture of Jingzhaoen landed like a resounding slap, striking hard across the GU family's face. They probably never imagined that I, the abandoned wife they had driven out, would actually dare to take them to court. The day after receiving the summons, Madame Gu, formerly the Marchioness of Jingen, stormed up to the house in a rage. At that moment I was in the private parlor of the main shop, discussing with shopkeeper Wang about opening a branch outside the pass. "Shen Weilan, you venomous woman, get out here." Madame Gu's sharp, cutting voice was still so familiar. I motioned to manager Wang to stay calm, then leisurely finished a cup of tea before getting up and walking out. In the main hall, Madame Gu was struggling with the guards who were restraining her. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes unkempt. There wasn't a trace left of the dignified lady she used to be. Seeing me, she immediately lunged at me like a madwoman. "You shameless Shen Weilan, how has our GU family ever wronged you? How could you be so utterly merciless? Is your heart made of stone?" I hadn't even spoken when she began sobbing on her own, crying out to the surrounding customers and servants at the top of her voice, "Everyone come and see. This is the shopkeeper of Huitong Tianxia, a jealous woman cast off by her husband's family, because my son is marrying a new bride. She harbors hatred, kicks us when we're down, and is trying to drive our whole family to ruin." Her completely inverted words provoked a flurry of comment from the crowd. I watched her perform with a cold gaze, and only after she had shouted herself hoarse did I speak slowly. "Finish talking." Madame Gu choked on her words and glared at me viciously. "Madame Gu," I deliberately emphasized the 2 syllables. "First, let me correct you. Young master and I divorced by mutual agreement, not because he repudiated me. The divorce document is in black and white, written perfectly clear. Second," I lifted a ledger in my hand, "your GU family, over the past 3 years, has borrowed from Huitong Tianxia 37 times, totaling 38,600 taels. From a single hairpin on your head to the cold and warm presents Lord Gu used to grease his colleagues' palms, every single transaction is recorded, each stamped with young master's own signature. Debts must be repaid." "That's only right. I handled things according to the rules. How can you accuse me of ruthless extermination?" I opened the ledger and displayed it for everyone to see. "As for this newcomer you mentioned, that's even more laughable. The reason your son and I divorced was because our temperaments were incompatible. It had nothing to do with anyone else. Whom he chooses to marry is his freedom. I, Shen Weilan, have not a single complaint and will only offer my blessings. My words were clear, well-reasoned, and justified. By contrast, Madame Gu's tantrums and rolling on the ground appeared so ridiculous and unreasonable. The looks in the people around her gradually shifted from sympathy to contempt. Madame Gu, both angry and anxious, cursed without thinking. Nonsense, if it weren't for you. This jinx, how would our Marquis's household have fallen to this state? It's all because you brought misfortune. You inauspicious woman. Smack, a crisp slap resounded through the main hall. I struck as fast as lightning and landed a hard slap on Mrs. Gu's face. Everyone was stunned. Mrs. Gu covered her face, looking at me in disbelief. She probably never expected that the daughter-in-law who used to be so timid before her, barely daring to breathe, would actually dare to hit her. You dare hit me. I hit you. I withdrew my hand, my gaze icy cold. Madame Gu, I respect you as an elder, which is why I tolerated your insolence here. But you spew filthy words, smear my name, and ruin my reputation and business. If I endure it any longer, wouldn't I truly become an easy target for anyone to manipulate? Let me tell you, the Shen Weilan of today is not the Shen Weilan from 3 years ago. If you dare to spout another word of nonsense, it won't be as simple as a slap. I stepped forward, staring her down, and spoke each word clearly. Every cent you owe must be paid. 3 days from now, we'll meet in court. By then, I hope you'll still have the same confidence you have today. After saying that, I stopped looking at her and turned to order the guards. Throw her out for me. 10. Madame Gu was dragged out of Huatong Tianxia by my people like a dead dog. This slap completely shattered her last shred of dignity in Chang'an, and also shattered my final attachment to the past. From then on, there would be no room for courtesy at all. I thought that next it would be the Jingshaoan office holding court to inquire into the case, but I didn't expect that the next day, what I awaited was not the constables, but Jiyu Yanqing. He came at dusk, alone, with no attendants. He was still dressed in a simple green robe, still had that handsome, refined face, but the lofty pride that used to sit between his brows was gone, replaced only by an unshakable exhaustion and loneliness. He stood at the gate of Huatong Tianxia, staring at the gilded sign, and stood there for a long time. I did not go out to meet him. I stood by the second-floor window, watching him quietly through the swirling snow between us, only 100 paces apart, yet it felt as if 1,000 rivers and mountains lay between us. In the end, he still came in. He did not make a scene like his mother. He simply walked up to the counter and, softly to the clerk, said, "I wish to see your shopkeeper Shen." The attendant didn't recognize him, but seeing his distinguished bearing, he came upstairs to inform me. I fell silent for a moment and said, "Have him wait for me at Yayan. In the end, we still need to meet face to face. Some things must be settled in person." When I walked into Yayan, Jiyu Yanqing was sitting beneath a withered plum tree. Snowflakes fell onto his shoulders, and he didn't brush them off. He looked like a soulless statue. Hearing footsteps, he slowly lifted his head. Our eyes met, as if a lifetime had passed. 3 years ago, on a snowy day just like this, he accompanied Liu Ruyue to Hanshan Temple to admire the plum blossoms, and I sat in the Marquis's residence all night, waiting in vain. "You've lost weight," he spoke, his voice hoarse. I felt nothing inside, only a sense of irony. "Thanks to you, I've lost weight, and become tougher." I went to the stone bench opposite him and sat down, getting straight to the point. "Why have you come today, Lord Gu? If it's to apologize for your mother's words and actions yesterday, you don't need to." I didn't take them to heart. He looked at me, his expression as tangled as a ball of yarn. There was guilt, regret, resentment, and a trace of an inquisitiveness I couldn't understand. "Weilan," he called my name, coming from his mouth that way made it feel unbearably harsh. "Do we have to go this far?" "This far where?" I retorted. "Is it a step toward repaying the debt, or a step toward going to court?" He was cornered into silence, a painful expression appearing on his face. "I know, it's my fault. It's our Gu family. I'm sorry," he said. He spoke with difficulty. "Those 30,000 plus taels of silver, we really can't come up with it right now. Could you give us a little more time? Once I find a new job, I will surely repay you both principal and interest." When he said this, he lowered his head, not daring to meet my eyes. Looking at his embarrassed expression, I could not feel a trace of pleasure, only endless desolation. This was the man I once loved, that confident, ambitious top scholar who once spoke grandly of shaping the nation, now, for 30,000 taels of silver, humbled himself before me. How tragic, and how ridiculous. Official GU. I changed my form of address, my tone becoming businesslike. Uniting the world through finance isn't my sole responsibility. There are countless shareholders and depositors behind it. I don't have the authority to alter the rules on a whim because of personal ties. Otherwise, I couldn't justify it to them. Personal ties? He jerked his head up, eyes full of pain. In your eyes, do our 3 years of marriage amount to nothing more than a personal connection? I laughed, laughing until tears welled at the corners of my eyes. Marital bond. Jiu Yanqing. You're talking to me about our marital bond now. I stood up and walked to him step by step, looking down at him from above. At the time you despised my mercantile background, called me full of the smell of copper, and forced me to sign the separation papers. Why did you never speak of marital feelings? When your mother pointed at my nose and cursed me as unlucky, cursed me for being unable to bear children, where were you? Did you ever say a single word in my defense? Your good cousin Liu Ruyue, wearing the clothes I made and basking in my husband's affection, flaunted your incomparable elegance before me. Did it ever occur to you that I am also your wife? Jiu Yanqing, touch your conscience and ask yourself, in those 3 years, when did you ever treat me as your wife? In your heart, I was nothing but a wealthy tool used to cover your family's deficits. Every word I say is like a knife, viciously stabbing into his chest. His face turned deathly pale, his lips trembling, not able to utter a single word. So, now, don't talk to me about feelings. I withdraw my gaze, my voice cold without a trace of warmth. I, Shen Weilan, only talk business with you. 38,600 taels, within 3 days. Either repay the money or bring something as collateral. 11. Collateral. Jiu Yanqing seemed to have heard the biggest joke in the world and let out a bitter laugh. What does our Jiu family have now that could possibly be worth nearly 40,000 taels of silver? Yes, I looked at him and slowly uttered 2 words. GU residence. He trembled all over and suddenly stood up, staring at me in disbelief. What did you say? You want our family's ancestral home? Yes, I nodded, my tone calm. According to my assessment, your residence, together with the furniture and antiques inside, is worth about 50,000 taels on the market. After deducting the debts you owe, I can still pay you an additional 11,400 taels as the difference. You won't lose out in this deal. Not lose out. Jiu Yanqing trembled with anger, his handsome face distorted. Shen Weilan, do you know what that residence means to our Jiu family? It's the foundation of our 100-year lineage. It's the place my grandfather and my father spent their lives building. You actually want to buy it with money. You're insulting me. Insulting the whole GU family. Humiliation. I snorted coldly. Lord GU. Have you forgotten? How did your Jing'an Marquis manner humiliate my Shen family back then? You spent my family's money while calling us money-mad merchants. On my father's birthday, you'd rather go admire plum blossoms with another woman than step through the Shen family gate. Saying you feared our vulgarity would tarnish your nobility. Now you talk to me about the ancestral home, about roots, about humiliation. I stared at him, my gaze sharp as a knife. In Jiu Yanqing's eyes, only your GU family's face matters. Our Shen family's dignity is supposed to be trampled under your feet. Let me tell you, today I am going to use the money you look down on the most to buy the ancestral home you are most proud of. I will show everyone how insignificant your so-called noble lineage is in the face of Shen Weilan's money. I practically roared those words. 3 years of pent-up resentment erupted all at once in that moment. Jiu Yanqing staggered back again and again under my shouting, his face as pale as paper. He looked at me, his eyes full of unfamiliarity and fear. He probably has never seen me like this in his memory. I'm always that gentle, forbearing woman who comes when called and leaves when waved away. He never knew that there's a volcano hidden inside me. You've changed, he murmured, a trace of despair in his voice. Yes, I've changed. I stifled all my emotions and regained my composure. Thank you, and thank you to your family as well, for making me who I am now. I turned away and didn't look at him anymore. I've made myself very clear. 3 days from now, I'll be waiting for your answer. Either pay back the money, or sign this deed of property transfer. I drew out the document I had prepared from my sleeve and set it on the stone table. See to it yourself. With that, I left the elegant courtyard without looking back, leaving him only a resolute silhouette. The snow was falling harder. I knew that the last trace of false warmth between Jiyu Yanqing and me had been completely buried by this heavy snowfall. The 3 days passed quickly. During these 3 days, the Jiyu family tried everything they could. They went to plead with old friends and acquaintances from the past, but without exception, they were turned away at the door. They wanted to sell the remaining antiques and paintings in the house, but those shrewd merchants ruthlessly undercut the prices, and they couldn't even scrape together a fraction of the debt. Liu Ruyue had also tried to help. She held a fundraising poetry gathering, hoping to use her talent and reputation to raise some money for the Jiyu family. In the end, on the day of the gathering, only a handful responded. The few who came merely tossed down 3 to 5 taels of loose silver, listened to a few pedantic poems, and hurried off. In the end, she raised less than 200 taels of silver. This matter became the laughingstock of the entire Chang'an city. People were all saying that Miss Liu, the talented poet's verses, were only worth that price after all. By the afternoon of the 3rd day, there was only 1 hour left before the deadline I had set. Jiyu Yanqing once again came to Huatong Tianxia. This time, he didn't come alone. At his side were his white-haired mother and Liu Ruyu, weeping like pear blossoms in the rain. They didn't make a scene again, they just walked, silent and humiliated, into the room I had designated. I sat in the main seat and looked at them. Mrs. Jiyu seemed to have aged 10 years overnight, her eyes hollow and her face ashen. Liu Ruyu kept her head down, not daring to look at me, only ceaselessly dabbing at the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief. Only Jiyu Yanqing fixed his gaze on me, a near-destructive calm in his eyes. We agree, he spoke, each word seeming to be squeezed out between his teeth. I nodded, signaling to shopkeeper Wang beside me to hand over the deed transfer document and the silver note for 11,400 taels, signed and sealed. This money is yours. From now on, the Jiyu residence belongs to me. Shen Weilan, Jiyu Yanqing picked up the pen, but his hand was trembling violently. That brush once wrote verses famed throughout the capital and marked the golden list of the Tanhua. Now, it is to be used to sign the contract selling the ancestral home. What a bitter irony and humiliation this is for him. Cousin. Liu Ruyu grabbed his sleeve, eyes brimming with tears. Don't, let's think of another way. What other way is there? Jiyu Yanqing gave a bleak smile and shook off her hand. Ask someone for help, or hope your poetry collection sells for a sky-high price. Liu Ruyu's face went pale in an instant. Jiyu Yanqing ignored her, took a deep breath as if summoning all his strength, and wrote his name on the contract. Then it was Madame Gu's turn. She picked up the pen but hesitated to put it down, instead lifting her head and looking at me with a venomous glare. Shen Weilan, you will get your punishment. I met her gaze without expression. Then you needn't trouble yourself. You'd better first think about where you'll rent a small courtyard to live after taking this money. Madame Jiyu was so infuriated by me that she nearly fainted from catching her breath. In the end, she still signed her name with trembling hands. When shopkeeper Wang handed me the new deed stamped with the official seal, I didn't feel the wild joy and excitement I had imagined. There was only an empty, hollow calm. Great revenge achieved, yet no happiness perhaps. From the moment I signed the divorce agreement, the Shen Weilan who once brimmed with joy and longed for love had already died. The current me is merely a successful businesswoman. 13. The news that I had bought the Jiyu residence spread through Chang'an like it had sprouted wings. Everyone was stunned by my grand gesture. No one dared look down on me, the merchant's daughter, anymore. They began to realize that in this world, power changes and wealth shifts, but the money held in one's hand is the only truly tangible thing, and I, Shen Weilan, am the one who controls the money. I didn't move into the Jiyu residence right away. I sent people to completely renovate the house from the inside out. Everything bearing the Jiyu family's mark was thrown out by me. I renamed it Shenyuan to serve as my Shen family's secondary residence in the capital. As for Jiyu Yanqing's household, they took the more than 10,000 taels of silver and rented a 3-yard compound in a secluded alley in the southern part of the city. Barely getting by, it was said that Liu Ruyu couldn't stand such a hard life. She wept every day and argued constantly with Jiyu Yanqing. Jiyu Yanqing, on the other hand, sank into despair, drowning his sorrows in drink day after day, no longer the dashing figure he once was. These messages, I just listen to them. They can no longer stir the slightest ripple in my heart. Their lives have nothing to do with me anymore. All my focus is devoted to the grand undertaking of Huitong Tianxia. Under my leadership, Huitong Tianxia's business footprint has begun to expand. Overseas, I built a vast fleet and opened up the maritime Silk Road. We shipped the Great Jew's silk, porcelain, and tea overseas, and in return brought back large quantities of spices, gems, and gold. I also founded a marine insurance business to provide coverage for seagoing merchant ships, greatly reducing the risks of navigation and inspiring more people to engage in maritime trade. The wealth connecting the world snowballed, growing larger and larger. The Shen family's influence had long since gone beyond the realm of commerce and begun to permeate every aspect of the Great Jew. When the court needed disaster relief, waged war, or repaired palaces, the first thing they thought to do was borrow funds from the entity that connected the world. Even the emperor, when he met me, would politely address me as shopkeeper Shen. That feeling of being needed and feared by others was far more solid and satisfying than being the wife of a marquisate heir. That day, I was working through the shipping accounts when 7th Prince Xiao Che suddenly paid a visit. He has now already become the crown prince. Ever since I first made a name for myself, he has been my staunchest supporter. The relationship between us, too, has slowly shifted from a purely business partnership into something a bit delicate. He, unlike other princes and nobles, does not look down on my background. On the contrary, he greatly appreciates my talent for business. We often discuss national affairs and people's livelihood together, chatting from reforms in canal transport to border market trade. I found that he is an heir with remarkable foresight and boldness. Wei Lan, I sought you out today because there is an important matter to discuss. Xiao Che got straight to the point, his expression grave. Please speak, Your Highness the Crown Prince. There is a severe drought in the north. The people are suffering everywhere. Father intends to allocate 500,000 taels of silver from the treasury and has ordered me to hurry to the disaster area to open the granaries and distribute grain. But as you know, the treasury is depleted, and that sum cannot be raised quickly. He looked at me, eyes blazing. So, in the name of the court, I want to borrow money from Huitong Tianxia through you, 500,000 taels, for a term of 3 months. The interest, you decide. I set down the ledger in my hand and pondered for a moment. 500,000 taels was not unattainable for Huitong Tianxia at present, but this loan carried enormous risk. Since ancient times, there have been countless cases of the authorities borrowing from the people and defaulting on their debts. If the court defaults, not only will I lose everything, it will also shake the very foundations of Huitong Tianxia. I looked at Xiao Che and slowly shook my head. Your Highness, forgive my bluntness. This deal is too risky. I can't do it. 14. Xiao Che seemed to have anticipated that I would refuse. Not surprised, he merely picked up his teacup, gently blew away the steam on top, and then spoke at a measured pace. Wei Lan, don't rush to refuse yet. Listen to my terms. First, for the 500,000 taels, I won't demand silver as repayment. I will offer as collateral the salt and iron monopoly rights of 3 northern provinces for 5 years. During these 5 years, all salt and iron business in these 3 provinces will be exclusively operated by you. Tongqiao Tianxia, you should be well aware of how profitable this is. My heart trembled. Salt and iron have been state monopolies since ancient times and are one of the court's most important and stable sources of revenue. That Xiao Che would be willing to put up the monopolies of 3 prefectures as collateral, this move could hardly be called modest. Second, he set down his teacup and looked at me, his gaze growing deep. I know you have been promoting your credit system, but so far, your system is limited to the merchant world. I want to expand it to the entire Great Jew, taking this 500,000 taels of disaster relief as an opportunity. We will cooperate to establish a credit file for every subject in Great Jew. From now on, whether it's taxes, corvée, borrowing, or commerce, everything will be tied to that file. Those with good credit can enjoy various privileges, even tax reductions. Those who breach trust will find it hard to take a single step. Wei Lan, you're a merchant. You should understand how crucial a trustworthy society is to commercial development, and I, as the future ruler, need a stable, orderly, and easily governed country. We can both win. Xiao Che's words struck me like a boulder, setting off 1,000 raging waves in my heart. I stared at him in shock. I never expected him to possess such far-reaching vision. He saw through the core principle behind all my business strategies, credit. Moreover, he wanted to elevate it from the realm of commerce to the level of national governance. This is a grand blueprint capable of changing an entire era. If this can truly be achieved, Huitong Tianxia's status will be unshakable. It will no longer be just a bank, it will be another center of power, running neck and neck with the court, and I, Shen Weilan, will become one of the founders of this new order. This temptation is too great, so big that I couldn't refuse. I looked at Xiao Che, the man who would one day rule the world. In his eyes, there wasn't the slightest hint of calculation, only complete sincerity and boundless yearning for the future. In that moment, I seemed to understand why I was drawn to him. We are the same kind of people, we both want to stand at the pinnacle of power and change this world. I took a deep breath, stood up, faced him, and gave a solemn bow. Your Highness the Crown Prince, I'll take this deal. 15. The collaboration with the Crown Prince pushed Huitong Tianxia to an unprecedented height. I personally led the team to the disaster-stricken areas in the north, while assisting the Crown Prince in distributing relief grain and funds. We also began, on a large scale, to establish credit files for the local people. This process was harder than I imagined. The common people couldn't understand why they had to tell us merchants their birth dates and times, family situations, and relationships with their neighbors. They were full of vigilance and distrust. I didn't force them, I used the simplest and most direct method to let them see the benefits of credit. I announced that any family willing to establish a credit file and rated as having good credit would not only immediately receive double the relief grain, but would also receive an interest-free spring plowing loan from me to help them restore production. When the news broke, the whole disaster area erupted. The people lined up in long queues and surged toward our registration points. Soon, the first batch of credit files was established. I led the evaluation team, going village to village, household to household, verifying and rating each one. When the first batch of farmers rated as excellent actually received interest-free loans and double rations from my hands, everyone's doubts evaporated. Credit, that originally vague and ethereal word, for the first time appeared before them in such a concrete, such a tangible way. It could be exchanged for grain, for silver, for the hope of surviving. For a time, establishing a credit file became the trendiest thing across the entire North. I struck while the iron was hot and quickly spread this system to industries like salt, iron, tea, and cloth. We signed credit agreements with merchants. Any merchant who joins our credit system must guarantee genuine goods at fair prices and treat customers honestly, without cheating the old or the young. If any counterfeit, shoddy products or fraudulent overcharging are discovered, they will be placed on our dishonest blacklist and will never again be able to obtain any loans or support from Huitong Tianxia. Their shopfronts may even be hung with a dishonest merchant sign. Merchants with good reputations will receive strong support from us. We not only provide them with low-interest loans, but also use Huitong Tianxia's channels to help them sell their products across the country. In just half a year, the business environment of the 3 northern provinces has been completely transformed. Market order is well regulated, counterfeit and shoddy goods have vanished, and trade routes are more prosperous than ever. As a result, the court's tax revenue has multiplied several times over. The emperor was greatly pleased and, in open court, singled out the crown prince and me for commendation. He even, unheard of, bestowed upon me the honorary title of first-rank protector of the nation, presented a gold plaque, and granted me permission to enter the palace to pay respects to the emperor at any time. For the daughter of a merchant to receive such an honor in the great Zhou dynasty was a once-in-history event. The Shen family and I had both reached the peak of our reputations, and just as I returned from the north laden with honors and was receiving the city's cheers, I saw in the crowd a figure both familiar and strange. It was Jiyu Yanqing. He stood in the corner of the crowd, wearing an old scholar's robe washed to chalky white, gaunt and haggard, his eyes dim. He looked at me seated atop a tall horse, with His Highness the Crown Prince personally holding the reins, receiving the reverence of the masses. In his eyes, there was no longer the former aloofness and disdain. All that's left is endless remorse and despair. That cuts to the bone. Our eyes met briefly in midair for a fleeting moment, then I calmly looked away, as if I'd seen an irrelevant stranger. We've long since become people from 2 different worlds. 16. After returning to Chang'an, my life became even busier. The success of the credit system in the north made the court officials see its great potential. With the crown prince's strong endorsement, the emperor issued an edict to promote this system nationwide, and I, Shenhualan, was appointed as the overall head of this massive plan. I became a veritable uncrowned king. Though I held no official position, my power was astonishingly great. With the stroke of my pen, I could easily determine the rise and fall, the honor and disgrace of a merchant, a family, or even an entire region. Countless people want to curry favor with me. To please me, gifts delivered to Xinyuan every day pile up like a mountain. Those seeking an audience with me line up from one end of the street to the other. Among them are also some unexpected people. That day, the butler came to report that Liu Rui's mother, Madame Liu, had come to request an audience. I was a bit surprised. The Liu family, ever since the Jiyu family's downfall, had plummeted as well. Liu Rui's father, a leisurely 7th-rank official, had also been dismissed from his post. These days, their whole family is living even more miserably than the Jiyu family. What did she come to see me for? I didn't want to see her at first, but on second thought, I let her in. I'd like to see what tricks they're trying to pull this time. Madame Liu was brought to my study. She looked much older than when I last saw her, though her clothes were still relatively clean. The fabric was the coarsest burlap. When she saw me, she didn't cry and make a scene like Madame Jiyu did. Instead, with a thud, she dropped straight to her knees. Madame Shen, no, Lady Protector of the Nation, kowtowing as she wept, she pleaded, please, I beg you, please save our Ruyue. I frowned. What's wrong with her? She's ill, gravely ill. Madame Liu sobbed uncontrollably. Since the Jiyu family suffered that misfortune, she has been gloomy every day, refusing food and tea. A few days ago she fell seriously ill and couldn't get up. We called many doctors, and they all said it was an illness of the heart. Medicine cannot cure it. I'm afraid she won't survive this winter. And so, I asked coldly, the doctors said a heart ailment must be treated with a cure of the heart. As for Ruyue, she has been constantly thinking about young Master Jiyu. She said that her greatest wish in this life is to rightfully and openly marry young Master Jiyu. She said that if she could be a Jiyu daughter-in-law for even one day, she could die in peace. Madame Liu lifted her head and looked at me with a pleading expression. Madam, I know you now hold great power. One word from you can decide their marriage. I'm begging you, for the sake of Ruyue's devoted love. Please grant them this. When she finished, I almost laughed angrily. What kind of logic is this? Your daughter is about to die. Her wish is to marry my ex-husband, so you expect me, his ex-wife, to grant them this? Is there any request in the world more absurd and shameless than this? Madame Liu, I stood up, walked to her, my voice turning cold. Do you think that I, Shenhualan, run a charitable hall? What does your daughter's life or death have to do with me, whom she wants to marry? What does that have to do with me? When she first interfered in my marriage and enjoyed Jiyu Yanqing's care, did she ever think about how I felt? Now that she's fallen from grace and is ill, she suddenly remembers me. Does she think I'm easy to bully, or that my saintly heart will swell and I'll pity you two miserable lovebirds? I looked at her and said, word by word, go back and tell Liu Ruyue, if you want to marry Jiyu Yanqing, fine, beg for him yourself, fight for him yourself, don't try to use me as a pawn. I, Shenhualan, am not that cheap. Also, I sneered, don't talk about unrequited devotion in front of me, whether her devotion is to Jiyu Yanqing the man or to the title heir of Jing'an Marquis. You two know in your own hearts. See our guest out. 17. I thought that after I humiliated them like that, the Liu family would give up. I didn't expect that 3 days later, Jiyu Yanqing came in person. He knelt at the gate of Xinyuan, enduring a sky full of wind and snow, and a single kneel became a full day and night. He said nothing, just knelt there, like a stubborn rock. This matter quickly spread throughout Chang'an. Everyone came running to watch the commotion. They pointed at Jiyu Yanqing and whispered among themselves, isn't that the former top graduate Jiyu Tanhua? Why is he kneeling here? I heard it's for Liu, the talented lady. She's on the verge of death and wants to marry him before she goes. Then why is he begging Madame Shen? Didn't they already divorce? You don't understand, do you? The Jiyu family has nothing left now. They can't even come up with the money for a decent wedding. He's begging Madame Shen, asking for charity. TSK. What goes around comes around. Back then, how disdainful he was toward Madame Shen. Now he's got to kneel and beg her. That's karma for you. Those rumors and whispers were like knives, cutting into Jiyu Yanqing, but he remained kneeling, perfectly erect, saying not a word. Bao Xia tried several times to drive him away, but I stopped him. Each time, make him kneel. I watched that familiar yet strange figure through the window, my voice icy. I want to see how long he can keep kneeling. I felt no softening, and no sympathy. I know he's doing this not because he loves Liu Ruiyue. He's using this approach to make one final, high-stakes gamble. He's betting on my reputation. Now, I am the Empress-appointed Lady Protector of the nation, a business prodigy revered by all. My image is radiant and positive if I ignore this ex-husband, who's kneeling and begging, and let him kneel to death at my doorstep. Then how will the world see me? They will say I'm cold-blooded, say I'm heartless, say I'm merciless when I'm in power. This would greatly damage the hard-earned reputation I have managed to build, and if I were to be soft-hearted and agree to his request, and pay to give them a grand wedding, then Jiyu Yanqing would be able to use my name to salvage a bit of face. Liu Ruiyue could also get her wish fulfilled. He's an expert at plotting and scheming. Unfortunately, he still doesn't understand me. I, Shen Weilan, am least afraid of being judged. With money, I can build my business empire. I can also use money to shut everyone up. The next day, at the break of dawn, I had people set up a high platform at the entrance of Shen Garden. Then I changed into splendid attire and personally walked out. Jiyu Yanqing had been kneeling so long his lips had turned purple, and he was on the verge of collapse when he saw me come out. A barely perceptible glimmer of hope flashed in his eyes. I did not look at him. Instead, I stepped onto the high platform and, facing the growing crowd of onlookers below, spoke loudly. Ladies and gentlemen, I imagine you're all very curious about the man before me, young Master Jiyu. Today, in front of everyone, I'll make clear and plain the grievances between us. 18. I stood on the high platform, my voice carried by inner power, clearly spreading throughout the entire neighborhood. 3 years ago, I married Jiyu Yanqing. My Shen family brought a dowry of 128 palanquins, gold, silver, jewels, fields and shops, worth no less than 100,000 taels. I thought I was marrying for love. In the end, I married a hole that could never be filled. In these 3 years, I used my dowry to support the entire Jiyu family. I supported him through his studies, supported him in becoming an official, supported his so-called pride and refinement, and what did I get? What I got was that he looked down on me for being from a merchant family, smelling entirely of copper and silver. What I got was his mother-in-law insulting me as an eggless hen. What I got was him and his talented cousin, courting and making music together under my very nose. Half a year ago, his family's fortunes fell, and they incurred huge debts. With a single divorce document, he swept me out the door. When I left, he gave me only 100 taels of silver. As a reward, my words burst among the crowd like a series of bombs. Everyone was stunned. They only knew I had been discarded, but they didn't know that behind it there was such an unbearable truth. Later, I took over the family business and life got better. They couldn't repay the money they owed my bank, so by the rules I seized their ancestral home. This, then, is what they call me, Shen Weilan, ruthless to the end. Now, his talented cousin is dying, and her dying wish is to marry him. He has no money for a wedding, so he came to kneel at my doorstep, begging me to make it happen. I let out a cold laugh, my gaze sharp as a torch, staring straight at Jiyu Yanqing below the stage. Jiyu Yanqing, let me ask you, what gives you the right? Is it our 3 years of marriage? Do you deserve that? Or is it that face of yours? Do you think I, Shen Weilan, would still care? Jiyu Yanqing's face could no longer be described as merely pale. He felt as if someone had stripped him bare, exposed naked under everyone's gaze. Shame and despair drowned him completely. With a sharp phut, he spat a mouthful of blood and fell straight backward. A chorus of gasps rose from the crowd. I didn't even lift an eyelid. I turned to the others and raised my voice. Everyone, I'm Shen Weilan, a merchant. Merchants don't make losing bargains, and they don't like to owe favors. Today, I'll be frank, if Jiyu Yanqing wants to marry Liu Ruiyue, fine. I, Shen Weilan, am also willing to accommodate them. As soon as those words were spoken, the crowd erupted, but I shifted my tone. My blessing comes with a price. I took a sheet of paper from my sleeve and unfolded it. This is the divorce note Jiyu Yanqing personally wrote back then. It clearly states that from now on, you and I, man and wife, are no longer connected. Today, I'm going to sell it. Starting price, 1 tael of silver, highest bidder wins, whoever buys it can command Jiyu yanking, whoever they tell him to marry, he must marry, whatever they tell him to do, he must do. I, Shenweilan, today, will let the whole world see exactly how much a man who abandons his wife and child, his dignity, his marriage, his future is worth. My words completely set the whole place ablaze. Everyone went crazy. This was no longer a simple transaction. This is an ultimate humiliation and judgment for a man. 19, 1 tael, I bid 10 taels, 50 taels, I want to buy it back and have him guard my family's gate. I'll pay 100 taels, let him marry my family's ugly daughter whom no one wants. In the audience, the crowd was roaring, bids rising and falling. Those merchants who had once been scorned by Jiyu Yanqing's aloofness were now bidding like they were on adrenaline, crazily raising their offers. What they bought wasn't a piece of paper, what they bought was a chance to vent their spite. The thrill of trampling a once lofty third-top scholar underfoot. Jiyu Yanqing had already been helped to his feet. He stared blankly at the absurd scene before him. Eyes empty, as if his soul had been drawn out. He probably never imagined, even in his dreams, that I would respond to his kneeling in this way. This would make him suffer 10,000 times more than killing him. The price quickly soared to 1,000 taels. The bidder was a well-known butcher from the west of the city. He had a 200 jin daughter at home who had never been able to marry. Just when the butcher thought victory was in his grasp, a cool, clear voice suddenly came from outside the crowd. I'll bid 10,000 taels. Everyone turned toward the voice and saw Crown Prince Xiaoche walking over slowly, surrounded by a retinue of guards. The moment he appeared, the entire venue fell utterly silent. Everyone knelt down. Greetings to His Highness the Crown Prince. I looked at him, my feelings mixed. I knew he didn't want this farce to go on any longer. Xiaoche walked to the front of the stage and looked up at me, a trace of helplessness and heartache in his eyes. He didn't say much, just gave a look to the guard. Beside him, the guard immediately presented a 10,000 taels silver note on a high platform. I took it, then handed him the divorce paper. The deal is complete. Xiaoche held that thin piece of paper and walked up to Jiyu Yanqing, who stood there with a pale face. He did not hand the divorce papers to Jiyu Yanqing. Instead, in front of everyone, he struck a flint and set them alight. The firelight lit his handsome face and also illuminated Jiyu Yanqing's eyes of despair. Jiyu Yanqing, Xiaoche's voice was devoid of any emotion. The grievances between you and Madame Shen end here. From now on, if you dare pester her again, don't blame me for not sparing old ties. As for Liu Ruiyue, he paused, took a silver note from his bosom and threw it onto Jiyu Yanqing's face. This is 1,000 taels. It's enough for you to give her a decent funeral. Having said that, he did not look at Jiyu Yanqing again. He turned, climbed the dais, and held out his hand to me. Weilan, let's go home. His voice was soft, yet carried an authority that allowed no contradiction. I looked at his hand, hesitated for a moment, and in the end, I still placed my own hand into his palm. His hand was very warm. Led by him, I stepped down from the high platform, passed through the silent crowd, and got into his splendid prince's carriage. The carriage set off, completely shutting out all the clamor and ugliness behind us. The carriage was very quiet. Xiaoche didn't speak. He only held my hand tightly. After a long time, he finally sighed. Why go to such lengths? Soil your own hands. I leaned against the carriage wall, watching the streets flying past the window, and said softly, if you don't squeeze the abscess, it will never heal. Some things must be dealt with once and for all. Finish it. And then what? He looked at me, his gaze burning. I didn't answer. Yeah, and then what? The great vengeance was avenged, and the past was completely severed. So, where should my future head? 20 After that farce, Jiyu Yanqing was utterly reduced to a cripple. He didn't use those 1,000 taels of silver to arrange Liu Ruiyue's funeral, because Liu Ruiyue wasn't dead. When she learned that Jiyu Yanqing had knelt at the Shun family's gate for her, endured every humiliation, and was finally shamed by the crown prince in public, she dragged her sick body to find Jiyu Yanqing. The two of them had a huge quarrel in that dilapidated little courtyard. What exactly they argued about, no one knew. All anyone knew was that the next day, Liu Ruiyue took the 1,000 taels of silver and ran off with a wealthy merchant heading south. Her so-called deep devotion, her so-called unchanging love unto death, ultimately could not withstand poverty and despair. Jiyu Yanqing became the biggest joke in Chang'an. He's gone mad, sometimes he cries, sometimes he laughs, and he's always muttering two lines. One is, I wasn't wrong, it's you who don't understand my refinement. The other is, Wayalan, come back, I was wrong. Later, he was sent back to the old family home in the countryside by the few distant relatives the Gu family had left. From then on, the scholar who had once made a name for himself in the capital completely disappeared from people's sight. As for me, Shen Wayalan, I remained the powerful lady protector of the nation, the commercial queen in control of all the country's banks. My relationship with the crown prince also became an unspoken secret acknowledged by the entire court. The emperor was pleased to see it happen. He even hinted to me more than once that the crown prince's residence was still missing a mistress, but I never agreed. I was afraid. I'm afraid of falling into the cage of marriage again, afraid of losing myself again. Xiao Che seems to have seen through my concerns. He didn't force me. He was just like before, discussing state affairs with me and standing by my side. He gave me enough respect and freedom. He will stay with me, in the middle of the night, double-checking the accounts of overseas trade. He will also offer me the most candid advice when I worry about a certain business plan. We are comrades, confidants, and also soulmates. A year later, the old emperor passed away. The crown prince Xiao Che ascends the throne smoothly, and the era is renamed Kaiyuan. On the night of the enthronement ceremony, he dismissed all the palace attendants and, alone, came to my Shen garden. He wasn't wearing a dragon robe, only a plain moon-white everyday garment. He walked up to me and took something out from his bosom. It wasn't the phoenix seal symbolizing the empress's position, but an abacus, a unique abacus made from the finest golden phoebe wood, its counting beads carved from smooth, mutton-fat white jade. Wayalan, he looked at me, his gaze as gentle as a pool of spring water. I know you dislike the palace's scheming and don't care for the empty title of empress, so today, I am not asking you to be my empress as the emperor. I come to you as Xiao Che, to ask you to be my wife. He handed that abacus block to my hand. I don't want you to give up your career for me, nor do I want you to wash my hands and cook for me. I only want you to continue being the radiant Shen Wayalan. Mountains and rivers stretch for tens of thousands of miles. I will rule them with you. The world's wealth I will share with you. I can even promise you, in this life, you alone will be in the harem. If you are unwilling, I won't touch you. All I ask is that when I am reviewing memorials late into the night, I can look up and see your back as you settle accounts. When I am anxious over state affairs, that there will be someone to share the burden with me. Wayalan, will you accept? I looked at him, at the sincerity in his eyes that held not a shred of impurity. The abacus in my hand is smooth and lustrous like jade. The coldness in my heart seems to be slowly melting. I began to laugh, truly, from the heart, and tears came with the laughter. I lifted my head to meet his gaze and, word by word, struck the jade abacus in my hand. That crisp sound is the most beautiful movement I have ever heard in my life. It was saying I do.